I don't know if this is going to be it's like a little, like a blanket fort we've got going on here. What are your thoughts?
I think it's just going to be loud.
I'm looking at the readout and no, we're all good. I think so. For those who can't see us, which is everyone,
Except me.
Oh yeah, that's true. Everyone else in the world is listening. We've put a blanket over it. We're basically in a blanket fort talking into the microphone tonight because it's kind of cold. And
Gotta say, I'm not crazy about it.
I thought maybe it would sound interesting. Richard doesn't like it though.
It just smells under here.
It does smell. All right.
Motion to move to get rid of the blanket.
Okay, if you hear a sudden diminish in sound quality,
That's my fault.
you'll know why. All right, we're taking the blanket fort, Operation Blanket Fort, rejected. Oh, it knocked the microphone a fair bit doing that. Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Jones.
Yeah, my name is Richard Jones.
Now they're going to think we're related or
Yeah.
married.
We were related through blood.
Through marriage.
It was a blood marriage.
And this is the Cult Pops podcast, and more specifically, this is Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Pops podcast, and this is a podcast where we talk about franchises. We do a different franchise every fortnight, and this franchise that we're doing
This fortnight.
this fortnight is our second dog-themed franchise in a row. Unprecedented. And we are talking, of course, about the Beethoven franchise. The Beethoven franchise, if you missed it growing up, which you might have, it's not that famous.
This little hidden gem might
It's
have
a bit-
slipped under the radar for you.
The series is about as well known as the actors who star in it.
Yeah. They're all discount versions of better.
Yeah. So they're about a Saint Bernard named Beethoven. Saint Bernard's a type of dog, and he stays.
Beethoven's his name.
Yeah, he stays with various kind of owners throughout the films, and gets up to antics, wacky antics. It's this weird breed of.
Dog, yeah. Saint Bernard.
Yeah, it's
I
a
think.
weird breed of dog. No, it's this weird like kind of subgenre of movie that you don't see too much anymore, of like dog centric.
Yeah. And that kind of real wholesome family movie. There's a very 90s feel to it, and you don't see it anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Beethoven films, there's 8 of them, by the way. We watched 8 Beethoven films in the last 2 weeks.
We watched 4 in the last 2 days.
They consist of Beethoven in 1992, which was directed by Brian Levant. Yep, I won't read out the RT scores just yet.
Oh, don't get ahead of yourself.
Then in 1993, exactly a year later, well, probably not exactly a year, I don't know, a year later, we had Beethoven's Second. A hilarious quip. Obviously Beethoven was a very famous composer, and he had symphonies, which were all called his second, third, fourth, fifth, up to what? How many symphonies did Beethoven have?
I don't know, I'm pretty sure there's at least 16.
Okay, well there you go. So the second one's called Beethoven's Second in 1993, directed by Rod Daniel. It's a good name for a
Rod Daniel, yeah.
for
That's a good name for a director.
I mean, yeah, Beethoven's Second, you would naturally call the sequel
Rod.
Beethoven's Second. Yeah. Then in the year 2000, 7 years later,
Wow.
we got Beethoven's Third, thus driving the joke into the ground. Beethoven's
That
Third.
makes sense. I didn't realise it was so much later.
Right. Beethoven's Third was directed by David Mickey Evans and is the first straight to VHS edition of the series.
9 symphonies.
9 to them. Oh, that's good. Beethoven's Fourth came out in 2001, also directed by David Mickey Evans.
That's what he's done.
Also straight to DVD.
They're all straight to DVD from this point.
That's true. I'll stop mentioning that then. In 2003, we had Beethoven's Fifth, directed by Mark Griffiths. Whew.
Mark, yeah.
His best work.
Yeah, I'd say.
Do you think any of these directors, do you think any of them like...
Put this on their CV.
Yeah, no, do you think they're like, oh man, I'll start little. I'll start directing Beethoven. And then
James Cameron started with Piranha.
Yeah, one day I'll be directing, big, but I'll start with Beethoven's Fifth.
I'll be directing Big.
It's a lateral
the Tom
move.
Hanks film.
So yeah, that was by the way, if you couldn't tell, straight to DVD, the quality of the films diminishes as well. Then in 2008, which was 5 years after Beethoven's Fifth, we had Beethoven's Big Break,
which is a reboot.
Kind of.
Well, we'll get into this. It is a reboot.
Yes, it is technically a reboot, and they've also ditched the naming convention.
Yeah, just to show how much of a reboot it is.
Yeah, but Beethoven's Big Break was directed by Mike Elliott, so that came out in 2008. Then in 2011, we had Beethoven's Christmas Adventure, directed by John Putsch.
Starring Kyle Massey of Corey in the House fame.
Yep, he was there.
Fun fact, it's not Corey in the House, it's just Corey in the House. That's my Mandela effect.
Yeah.
But it's
it's actually just your systemic racism.
Yeah.
Then finally, in 2014, most recently, we had Beethoven's Treasure Tale, directed by Ron Oliver.
Now, can you just clarify, how is tail spelt?
Tail.
Like
a dog's tail. Not a tale as in a fairy tale. The 8 films in the epic Beethoven saga star various B to D level actors, including Charles Grodin, Bonnie Hunt, Judge Reinhold, Morgan Fairchild, as you said, Corey from Corey in the House. David Duchovny's in the first one.
Yeah.
He's probably the biggest star of the entire franchise. Probably now, but he wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
Patricia Heaton, Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, Stanley Tucci's pretty big.
Yeah, but he probably wasn't at the time either.
Yeah.
And the prolific nature of the series may seem a bit perplexing, as in, why were there so many, right?
Yeah.
But because critics didn't really like the first one,
right.
But it made money, and while the concept doesn't cry out for sequels, apparently the first film did so well financially to launch more than just its initial sequel, but 6 more over the next 22 years. The average lifespan of a Saint Bernard is 8 to 10 years. So, with all that in mind, Richard, should we say what they're rated or say what they're about first?
We'll go just a real quick, like, one sentence.
Okay, so what's Beethoven 1992 about?
Beethoven's basically this family gets this dog. He's a giant Saint Bernard, and the dad's not happy about it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of on all these wacky adventures. It's slapstick kind of thing. Then in the second one, and so mainly 2 to 5 follow very sort of what would you say, like obvious and like tried and true sequel cliches. Mm-hmm. So in the second one, Beethoven finds love.
Yeah,
especially like for animal films as well.
Yeah.
Beethoven finds love and has kids, and then in the third film, which is the first straight to DVD or VHS one, the Newton family.
The Newton family are the main characters.
Yeah, in the
for
first
most
2
of the series.
So the original Newton family.
Yeah.
So they. There's a big family reunion, and the family that we grew to love in the first 2 films is now in Europe, and they left a package for their some of their relatives saying, "Can you bring this to the family reunion?" And it's Beethoven, and it's a road movie. Another sort of sequel trope.
Interestingly enough, his wife and puppies aren't in them from here on out, which I wonder what happened there.
And then in the fourth one, he's with that same new family.
For some reason.
For some reason.
And not back to the original Newtons
and then there's an identical rich Saint Bernard, and they swap,
and his name is Michelangelo.
Yeah.
So if you're not keeping up, there's one family, the Newton family, but one is like this one Newton family, then you go like the cousins, or the brother of the dad is the second Newton family.
And then in the fifth one, he's with an all-new family. And
he's with a girl.
Yeah, he's with a little girl on her way to some, one-horse town. She's staying with her weird uncle.
It's weird. She's probably they say she's 12 years old in it, and she's staying with her single uncle.
Yeah, who's a slob. And no one's seen him.
Yeah, and we don't really learn. For some reason, Beethoven's with her. We don't know why. This is the only film where you don't actually know why he's with this new person, but her last name is Newton.
Yeah.
So we can assume some
That's
kind of
for some
thing
means,
similar
yeah.
to the first two scenarios.
And then there's a whole hidden treasure plot with that one.
Yeah.
There was like a mining community, and there was buried treasure with all these kind of things. And then skip ahead, what was it, like 8 years?
5 years.
5 years, and then we have a reboot. So now this is where it gets really interesting.
More interesting than we were anticipating.
Yeah. So Beethoven's Big Break is about this dog, the stray dog, who wanders into a film set, and they decide, hey, this was a movie about a chihuahua or like a poodle.
Yeah, it was a poodle.
Let's make it about the Saint Bernard instead. And then they make the first Beethoven film.
So, what you can glean from this is that Beethoven's Big Break, Beethoven's Christmas Adventure, and Beethoven's Treasure Tale, the first 5 films are films in the Reboots universe. Does that make sense?
Unreal.
Well, I just wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting.
Well, because there was a moment when they name him Beethoven in the Beethoven's Big Break, and I thought it's a little coincidental that they, like, you know, twice in his life he happens to get. But then they make a movie based on all the things that have happened to him. So it's like this retread of the first film. There's like a lot of the scenes that you see from the first film, and then they get the idea and put it in this fictional movie, which is it's so good.
It was awesome.
And then Beethoven's Christmas. That's a weird one. So Kyle Massey, Coriander House, is an elf. Yeah. And there's this weirdly racist scene at the start.
It's not a racist thing thinking it's called In the House.
Well, so he has... it's like a storybook of all of like Santa's workshop.
John Cleese narrates it.
Yeah, and it's like all the elves were good at making toys, and they all got assigned. And then so there's like all these white elves go off to make toys. And it's like, but one elf had to work in the stable. It's just the one black elf. And like it's not like they had like ethnically diverse elves. It was just this one black one, and he was made to work in the stables. Now I've seen the Medea films, so I'm like have a voice when it comes to racism.
Yeah,
and that wasn't right.
And these are very much the dog version of the Medea films. And like so, there's so many parallels which we won't probably get into. But.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a bonus episode, but we're not going to. So anyway, he's an actual magic Christmas elf. So now magic's part of the franchise. And he licks a magic candy cane that allows him to talk to Beethoven. And then Beethoven speaks in this film, and he's voiced by Tom Arnold. And when he started speaking, we flipped out. So,
yeah. And another thing to note, which is interesting, and we're going to be talking about the continuity a lot of the Beethoven films. And right at the start, Beethoven's with an all-new family. Yeah. But right at the start, they specify, he's filming a commercial. And the mum of the main character, the main human character, who's not the elf, works in TV, and they're using Beethoven, who at this point is a movie star, to be
because
in
of because of Beethoven's Big Break, where he made the first Beethoven film, and then there's Christmas miracles and whatever, and then Beethoven's Treasure Tale. He's now back with the guy that was his trainer in Beethoven's Big Break.
It's the same actor.
It's the same guy. It's like you. It's a direct sequel to Beethoven's Big Break, and they just ignore Christmas Tale. Or Christmas Story, whatever it is.
Christmas Adventure.
And so, in this one, it's another like hidden treasure story.
It's a pirate theme.
Yeah, pirate themed, and they're on there's a beach.
And Beethoven's a movie star.
Beethoven's still a movie star.
This continuity stuff is important, and we'll get to it in a second. But first, Richard, I want you to tell me, how would you rank the 8 Beethoven films? And sorry that we had to go through telling you the story. I know if you're listening, you've probably seen all of them. but how would you rank them, or what do you think? How are you feeling?
Okay, I know that I'm going to be going against the majority here.
Yeah.
The first one's legitimately a good movie.
Yes, sure.
It's like in the same vein as like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
It's like, it's actually a good movie, and I would recommend it. From then on, they get a little bit silly. So 2, 3, and 4 all kind of merge together for me, and they're tied for last.
Okay. You reckon 2? Because 2 was still a cinematic release.
Yeah. It wasn't very memorable for me.
Okay.
I barely remember. Okay, I'd say 2, and then 3 and 4 below that.
What about 5?
I loved 5.
Did you?
I really liked 5.
Why?
I don't know.
So 5 was the mining community treasure hunting
Yeah.
story.
I don't know. I just really like the dynamic of the
little girl with her creepy uncle.
Yeah, the creepy uncle and how he learned to not be so creepy and all that. And then I actually really enjoyed the reboot ones. Probably I'd go the first one and then
The first reboot.
Overall I'd go the first Beethoven and then
Big Break.
Big Break.
Yeah.
And then 5.
Yeah.
And then Christmas.
Okay.
And then 2. And then Treasure Tale and 3 and 4 tied for last.
So there you go. It's not at all for Richard, it's not just a dwindling return series. It was all over the place.
Yeah, no, it probably has a lot to do with how much attention I paid to them and stuff like that, but I really liked the twist of Big Break.
Yeah, it was cool.
That was really cool.
It blew our minds.
Because it's revealed, and it's like, so in this scene, Beethoven shakes George Newton's hand, and he's the main character from the first one, and we were like, wait a minute,
Newton.
does this mean...
Yeah, it was insane. Okay, so Beethoven 1992, we get our scores from Rotten Tomatoes, and that's how we kind of judge the general consensus of how people, what the critical reception was of the movies. So the critics' score of Beethoven 1992 is 31%.
Wow.
Not very good.
Yeah, okay.
It's beating The Mummy, but only just. And I'll just say, because this is important, the audience score, which is what not critics but audience members would rate the film, is 35%.
Wow, okay.
So still not even that great. Despite that, we got Beethoven second, which scored a 27% critic score and a 30% audience score. Beethoven's third scored a 0% critic score and a 24% audience score.
Is that our first 0%?
It might be. Not even Scary Movie 5 is 0%.
Wow.
There are only 7 reviews, though.
Yeah.
Beethoven's fourth also scored 0%, but scored a 27% audience score. So that's a bit above Beethoven's third for Beethoven's fourth. Beethoven's fifth doesn't have a critic score, but the audience score is 33%. So that's the best of the... It's actually better than Beethoven's second. So this is the second highest.
So I was right, you're saying.
Fifth. Yeah. Beethoven's Big Break has an audience score of 43%. The highest of the series. And of course it doesn't have a critic score because assumably no one saw this movie.
Yeah.
Beethoven's Christmas Adventure has the lowest audience score of, other than 0, so not the lowest at all actually. That's a 13%.
Right.
Christmas
It's
Adventure.
bad. It is bad.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it.
And then Treasure Tale has 35%.
Alright.
So it jumps up and down. None of them crack 50. None of them are considered okay movies by anyone. But yeah, so part of the issue of the of finding any information for these films is you type in Beethoven into Google. You don't get the dog. You don't get the Saint Bernard that we've all come to love. You get some composer from the old days.
Who cares?
We sort of noticed this because I wanted to find out, like, why Beethoven? Why does this series have so many sequels?
Yeah.
Like, that can't be easy to make. Like, you've got a freaking dog.
Yeah.
And that's what was so good about Big Break, is it was actually quite a meta. Too meta for its own good.
It was so good.
But we sort of learned this early on in the podcast with Ace Ventura Jr., that with these straight-to-DVD sequels that come out years after the originals, there's no information about them because no one records it. No one cares. Yeah. Some producer goes, make a third Beethoven movie for me, please. 7 years after the original. And no one goes to the box office press and goes, there's another Beethoven movie happening, because no one gives a shit. Yeah. And that's what I think these movies are, is that,
Yeah, they are strange films. Like, but I love they're joining this, like, for me, this, like, high, like, this top shelf franchises that we've done that I now feel like a purist of.
Which it's valuable with something like Freddy vs. Jason, because that's classic
Freddy vs. Jason is one
slasher.
That's one that I feel like a purist of. I'm like, if you're rebooting Friday the 13th, it has to have this, and this.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, if you're making another Beethoven film, it has to do this.
I don't know if it's as valuable knowledge for Beethoven.
It's not, but I like... the idea that if another one came out, I could be like, these are my rules for life.
Because I don't know if I really liked any of... Well, I liked Big Break for what it was.
The first one's good. We liked
The first one's fine. Yeah. That's fine. One thing that I found interesting about these movies is with these kind of... I'm going to be speaking in very broad terms here because I can't quite articulate it. But these movies where it centers on like kind of a magical character.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
so he's not actual magic, but he's kind of always in the right place at the right time. He was,
But Beethoven's just kind of a dick.
Beethoven's not a good dog.
He's not a good dog. Like, so... Over the course of the movies like this, like if there's an animal or a character that maybe can't speak, or it's like the central MacGuffin almost of the film, usually like they push the main characters into like they push them into their love interest. That does happen a couple times in Beethoven, or they save the day. Beethoven's just there. In most of these movies, Beethoven's just kind of there, and the good guys, the human characters, solve the problem separate from Beethoven's influence. He usually causes the problem.
Yeah.
And they just learn to love Beethoven because he's a dog, and dogs are cool.
Yeah.
Like, they're not like, oh, and Beethoven saved the day, because he doesn't most of the time. He's just this slobbery mess who, like...
It just gets in the way.
He's a bad dog.
He's a bad dog. He ruins everything, and there's no reason to like him. From the character's point of view.
Yeah.
Like, we love him.
Yeah,
as
well,
an
he's
audience, because he's
Beethoven.
just wacky.
I've got a dog and his name is Beethoven. That was the assumingly made for the movie song at the end of
it's got to
Beethoven's
be made
Christmas
for the movie,
Adventure.
right?
Yeah, but
no, that was from Big Break.
Was it?
Christmas Adventure was.
Tell you what, nothing's as weird as watching a Christmas movie in June.
Yeah.
Like, especially a straight-to-DVD Christmas movie.
Yeah, with Kyle Massey in it. Also, another weird thing about the characters in these films, they all have dead parents. Or they're all widowed.
I think that's the whole... not all of them. The first two Newtons are fully together. But then everyone after the Newtons kind of have some kind of abandonment issue. Or
and it's like it became a joke by the time we got to like Christmas Adventure and then Treasure Trail. It was like he's talking. He's like, yeah, well, ever since my husband. Anyway,
and I guess that's because dogs,
broken families, and all that. Yeah.
Like a dog can fix that. But this isn't a good dog. He drools everywhere. It's disgusting. It's like it's awful. It's horrible to watch. And like on the topic of him not really like influencing where the story goes that much, in Beethoven's Fourth, which is the Prince and the Pauper story. I don't know if you caught this because we watched these movies in kind of a fever dream.
Yeah.
But no one ever actually becomes aware that the two dogs are split. Did you know that? So this movie is about, as we said, this is Beethoven's Fourth we're talking about now. I'm trying to be clear so people can follow.
Yeah, it's the Prince and the Pauper story.
So if you don't know what that is, Beethoven, who's a slovenly middle-class dog, through like a hilarious mishap, swaps places with a identical rich Saint Bernard called Michelangelo, and the two opposing families now. The rich family's like, why is Michelangelo being such a pain? And
that's right. Yeah, I remember this one.
The Newtons are like, why is Beethoven like wiping his feet on the mat before he walks inside now? Why is he being so polite?
They know that he's different. They realize he's changed. They don't know why.
They realize he's different. They don't know why. Then at the end, there's this big, stupid like climax with like a parade's happening or something. There's like something's happening in a park, and there's a float or a makeshift stage, and something big's happening. There's like I did not pay attention to the movie. This just happens in like 4 of them. Yeah. So and the way they switch back their identities is both dogs run behind the stage and then just stare at each other, and you get what is probably the most profound moment of the whole series, where these two characters who don't speak don't really show any signs of intelligence. They're just dogs. Yeah. Like, intelligence, I mean, like, they're not...
Sentience.
Yeah, the sentience, yeah. They sort of stare at each other, and there's this music that kind of softly, like, plays, and then they just walk past, and, like, each respective family finds their dog again. Like, so the family never becomes aware that they've even switched.
They see the other dog, though.
No, they don't. I'm
pretty sure they do, and they're like, isn't that... Oh, okay.
Maybe. I can't remember, man. Yeah. These went into a blur. However, I want to talk about, as we said, the continuity in this movie, because it's strangely tight. Apart from one anomaly we'll get to in a second. But the continuity in these films, it doesn't have to be as good as it is. Like, Beethoven's Third could be he's just with another family. okay,
Yeah.
fine. He's with another family. The Newtons seem to love him, but now he's with another family. But no, they...
just be like, it's still a dog.
Yeah.
You're like, this is the only connection we need.
They don't. Yeah, it's so strange because it's like
no one cares.
No one cares.
Yeah.
Universal Studios, who made the Beethoven films,
Yeah.
no one is like dead set on being like, yeah, but what happened to the original Newtons? But they cover it. And so the first two are the original Newtons, then the second two are the new Newtons, and then the fifth one is another new Newton. But yeah, and it's consistent. It's like, yep, he's with this family now, and then it's like consistent to the next one. He's still with this family for some reason. We don't know why, but it's not like, maybe we're just not told, which is actually fine. That's fine storytelling. Don't be so expositional, which they are in other respects. And then even with fifth, you at least know that the main character's last name is Newton, so you assume some similar thing happened. And then the reboot, it's like, fine, it's a reboot. We're bringing Beethoven into the modern age. That's fine. And then they make the first film, and by implication the rest of the series, like, implicit in the story. And it's interesting, because like, you didn't have to do that. Beethoven's Big Break could have been about anything, and it's like, yeah, it's the dog. It's the Beethoven dog, and he's with a new family.
Yeah.
Because the kids who are going to watch this haven't seen Beethoven from 1992.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, who's it for?
Yeah, and he becomes a movie star, and it's like, okay, and then in Beethoven's Christmas Adventure, he's still a movie star, and it's like, it's weird that they're keeping this in because it's not necessary. He doesn't need to still be... Like, you don't need to carry on the story for these straight-to-DVD movies. Like, the 4-year-old kid who watches Beethoven's Christmas Adventure every Sunday hasn't seen Beethoven's Big Break. Like, he's not holding out of it. And then in Beethoven's Christmas...
But the thing is that a kid watching just Beethoven would be like, yeah, of course he's famous.
Yeah.
It's Beethoven.
It's true. And then in Beethoven's Treasure Tale, not only does it continue that he's a movie star, it opens with him being the main character in a movie called Spy Dog, where he steals something called something like the Vietnamese MacGuffin or something was the name of the gem, or the like artifact he steals.
The MacGuffin.
Yeah, the MacGuffin. And then Eddie who's the main character from
Big Break.
From Big Break is the main character in and it wouldn't be as weird if he wasn't. If he was in Christmas Tale, but he's not. So he skipped this discount Greg Kinnear was in the 6th film in a franchise, skipped the 7th, came back for the 8th. Like, why was this important to him? Why was the guy who plays Eddie
turning down 7 is
why did he turn down 7 and come back for 8? It's weird because, anyway, so despite the continuity being tighter than like serious franchises we've watched, it's tighter than the X-Men movies. There's this one anomaly that drove us crazy, and it's in the last film. It's in Beethoven's Treasure Tale. Do you want to tell us what it is, Richard? I feel like I'm about to explode.
Well, okay, so in Big, just we haven't mentioned this. In Big Break, Rico from Hannah Montana just stumbles upon Beethoven and decides to keep him. In Treasure Tale, Eddie,
who's Rico's
dad, shows Beethoven a photo of Beethoven and Rico and says, "Oh, can't believe you were this small." And it's a photo of Rico with Beethoven as a puppy.
And it's like, you were so close. You went 8 films in with a tight continuity, and then threw a picture of a puppy, which, why? Why did that need to be happen? Yeah. Because Beethoven was a full-grown dog when he met Rico, whose name's Billy, I think, in these films.
Yeah.
And then you see him as a puppy, and it makes no sense. And like he mentions Billy. There's a picture. He shows him a picture of Rico on his phone and talks about how he has a son named Billy, and he's in college now. So it's not like they're just like, oh yeah, it's just the same character. It's like, no, he's got the same story, and he's still Beethoven's agent, like working with him in films.
Yeah. Okay, so in your head canon, how do you
the only thing that? I can think of? Well, at first I was like, maybe it's just a picture of a puppy, and he's being like, "Oh, it's hard to believe you're ever this small because I've never seen you this small." But Rico's in the picture with the puppy.
Okay, no, maybe
it's another puppy.
Maybe Rico just sent him. Maybe Rico just sent him like, "Hey, Dad, look at me. I got a Saint Bernard," and he's little, and he goes, "Huh." Hard to believe you were this small.
Well, because Beethoven's Big Break actually has puppies, and they adopt the puppies as well. So maybe Rico's just sent him a picture of
That's
him
it.
with
That's
a
it.
time.
It's fine.
Okay. Oh,
Beethoven's flawless. Oh, thank God. Okay. All right. Do you want to move on to continue the franchise?
I do want to move on to continue the franchise. Now, this is a segment of the show where we squeeze that little bit extra out of the series to try and make more money out of it, to try and which they've already done and I assume failed at. But I don't know. First of all,
they're making a lot of money.
I'll get to the fact that there are no word yet on any future films. That's when you type in upcoming Beethoven movies into Google and it goes, "Yep, there's a Beethoven biopic picture coming out." These movies are obscure as hell, man. But on that note, there was an animated series.
Oh, right.
Which aired for one season.
It would make sense to be an animated series.
Yeah. It had 26 15-minute episodes in 1994, which partially bridged the gap between the second and third movies. And only 2 cast members returned for the show, and one of them was playing a different character. So Dean Jones, who played the villain in the original movie, plays George Newton, the dad, in the cartoon. And Nicole Tom returned to play Rice Newton, who was the girl in the
and
first
they just act like Rice is a name?
Yeah, they just act like Rice is a normal name. And Rice is actually... Nicole Tom, of course, played Maggie in The Nanny.
Right. Oh, and also the main character, the little girl from the 5th one, is Leela from Lilo and Stitch and Samara from The Ring.
Yeah, that's true. Davy Chase.
Yeah.
And Beethoven could talk in the cartoon.
Oh, okay.
And it was released on VHS, but is yet to be released on DVD.
Damn it!
So, Richard, tell me...
I'm holding out for the Blu-ray.
Tell me your continue the franchise.
Okay.
If we got a Blu-ray of the Beethoven animated series...
We'll do a special episode. Okay, so my one, it's loosely connected to Beethoven. So I envision Beethoven as part of a cinematic universe.
The BCU.
Yeah. So... Well, no, it's bigger than that.
Okay, I apologise.
So you're familiar with the film Cats and Dogs?
Yes.
So I'm proposing a remake of that, Avengers style, starring Beethoven, Old Yeller, Toby, Bailey, Ellie, and Tino and Buddy from A Dog's Purpose, the Tramp and Lady, Hooch from Turner and Hooch, 101, nay, 102 Dalmatians. All the dogs that go to heaven, Skip from My Dog Skip, the Hound from Fox and the Hound, Lassie, the Snow Dogs, and the Snow Buddies, Bolt, Marley from Marley and Me, 8 Below, Milo or Otis, I can't remember which one's the cat and which one's the dog, Napoleon, Beverly Hills Chihuahua, Marmaduke, Airbud, the dogs from Cats and Dogs, Cujo, Air Buddies, Frank and Weenie, the Shaggy Dog, and the Dog Who Saved Christmas. They go up to battle against Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Kitty Galore from Revenge of Kitty Galore, Llewyn Davis's cat from Inside Llewyn Davis, Milo or Otis, whichever one is the cat, the Aristocats, Felix, Garfield, Puss in Boots, Mr. Fuzzy Pants, or 9 Lives for our international listeners, Keanu.
Wait, so 9 Lives. Yeah.
Keanu from
Keanu.
Goes Keanu. That Darn Cat. The Cat in the Hat, Top Cat, Grumpy Cat, Ghost Cat from Ellen Page's famous film Ghost Cat, the Cat from Breakfast at Tiffany's, Catwoman, and Simba.
What about Cats? What's the singing one? Cats Don't Sing? Something like that?
Cats. The musical
No. There's a cartoon. It's like one of those... You know how like Disney... It's like Disney made all the cartoons for a while, and then these obscure ones like Anastasia. And
Right.
There's one called Cats Don't Sing.
Right.
Something like that. I remember.
Well, I wasn't aware of that, so it's not part of my universe.
It's not part of this. That's awesome, man. You've done very well. I'm very proud of you. I'm almost as proud of you as I am of Beethoven. All right, I've got a continue the franchise.
All right.
And I'm very excited about it.
All right.
This is something I became aware of before we got Beethoven as a franchise.
Yeah.
Not before 1992. I wasn't born then. But when we announced that we were doing Beethoven, I'd already read it.
Get on with it.
Okay.
So excited.
Joe Pilcher
What?
plays Brennan Newton in Beethoven's Third and Fourth.
Which one's that?
So Beethoven's Third and Fourth, it's when they go to the uncle and his family.
Oh, yeah. So which character is it?
Brennan is the uncle's son.
Right, what does he do in the film? So you have to remind me.
He dresses up as a sumo in Beethoven's Third.
Right.
He has 2 love interests in each film, one in each film.
Yeah.
He's the kid. He's
okay.
So Judge Reinhold, who is Charles Groban's brother,
Yeah.
has a daughter and a son.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Brennan is the son, and he's played by Joe Pilcher.
Yeah.
On January 5th, 2006, this is true, this is a fact, after playing cards with his friends, Joe Pilcher left his buddies, who all reported that he was in good spirits. At 4:15am, Pilcher called one of his friend's cell phones, and that was the last anyone has ever seen or heard of him since.
Wow.
So his apartment was found unlocked. He was 18 at the time. His apartment was found unlocked, and he hadn't acted for a few years. And the lights were on in his apartment, which was uncharacteristic of him. His car was found 4 days later next to a bridge. Police also found a poem that Pilcher had written, which indicated he was depressed, but nothing to say he was going to kill himself.
Right.
Okay? A leading theory of the investigation was that Joe Pilcher jumped off the bridge. However, search dogs, nothing. No one found any...
Not even Beethoven.
Not even Beethoven. We'll get to that in a second. The family, Pilcher's father stated that Joe was actually intending to return to acting after he got his braces removed in the next year or so. Right? The family believe he was kidnapped or killed. They don't think he committed suicide.
Right. Obviously due to his fame.
No,
a crazed fan of Beethoven's Third.
Being that we now know that the new Beethoven canon, starting from Beethoven's Big Break, is set in the real world, where Beethoven is a movie star, that means that in this current continuity, Joe Pilcher went missing too. Okay? That means, because the Big Break, Christmas Adventure, and Treasure Tale never state the year that it's set in, so it could be set in 1992. Mm-hmm. They cast someone who isn't Charles Grover as George Newton, but it could be that actor could be playing
Charles
Grover playing George Newton, right? So we can assume that Beethoven's Big Break to Treasure Tale take place during the run of the original Beethoven series.
Yeah, the theatrical releases.
Yeah. So Joe Pilcher went missing in this universe, and Beethoven, who is now a grizzled Saint Bernard in his twilight years, despite having a successful movie and TV career, has always been haunted by the disappearance of Joe. He felt like he could have done something. He felt like it was his fault almost. And as he comes to terms with his own mortality, Beethoven decides to try and do one last good deed in his life, and is going to try find Joe Pilcher and solve the mystery of his missing friend, going on one last adventure in Beethoven's Final Symphony.
That's brilliant.
It's the Logan of the Beethoven series.
Yeah. That also reminded me... on the dogs team. Yeah. Also,
I know you're going to say this. So, what's his name?
Eddie McDowd.
From
100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd.
Who's a dog.
Yeah, he gets turned into a dog, and he has to do 100 good deeds. And it was great. It was a TV series on Nickelodeon, and it was brilliant. Who voiced the dog? Topher Grace?
No, it was Seth Green.
Seth Green, that's right.
So anyway, Joe Pilcher, I'm a bit of off-pod info about me. I'm a true crime buff. We don't talk about it much on the podcast because the podcast is about movies, but I'm real into true crime. I like missing persons are my favourite type of true crime. They're just so interesting.
You're going to go missing one day, and the statement I'm going to give to the police is, that's how I would have wanted it.
So yeah, I got very excited when we got Beethoven because I read that separate from this, as I said. What do you think? That's Beethoven's cool. Final Symphony.
Yeah.
And he dies. He dies at the end. He finds... I don't know if Joe's alive in the film. Maybe he's dead, but he finds closure. What happened,
yeah. And then he has to get the family to... the Joe Pilcher's family to lick the dog candy cane so Tom Arnold's voice can tell them what happened to their son.
But yeah, man, isn't that insane?
That's
so that kid went missing. He was in he hadn't acted for a few years, but he went missing in 2006.
When was Beethoven's Third? 2000.
2000. Yeah. So he was in third and fourth.
Yeah.
So 2000, 2001.
Yeah. What's he up to these days?
Who?
Joe Pilcher.
Oh, he's missing.
What?
No one knows.
I think he killed himself.
Yeah, that's the leading theory, but there's nothing to indicate that other than a slightly depressing poem.
And the fact that he left his car next to a bridge.
Yeah.
And he was depressed.
Yeah. But
a real head scratcher.
Anyway, I apologise if Joe Pilcher's family are listening to this episode, and I've got I don't think it's fully.
They know he's gone.
Huh?
They know he's gone, so it's not like we're giving them new information.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. But I apologise if you feel I've made light on it, but I couldn't resist, because when you're into true crime, you develop like a disconnect from it being in any way real, which I know it is, so there you go. But think about that, dude. Think about that kid from Beethoven's Third and Fourth. He's missing.
I wish I could remember him.
So I've been sitting on that for 2 weeks, wanting to, like, hiding that from you, to try and wow good. Everyone.
I'm interested that I'm surprised it's from Third or Fourth. So when you told me you had a cool fact, just me guessing, was that so the first film stars Charles Grodin and David Duchovny.
Yeah.
And stating as a fact, I said, did you know that during the production of Beethoven, they had to get a new dog because David Duchovny strangled the original Saint Bernard to death to establish dominance over Charles Grodin. And
you said that as a joke.
Yeah, well, I thought it could be a fact.
I basically teased Richard. I was like, "Hey, man, I've got a great fact for this episode."
And I guessed that might be it.
you weren't not in the ballpark. Like, it was something dark and something.
I knew it would be something dark. I thought it would be something to do with animal abuse.
Right.
I thought it was going to be mistreatment of the dog.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, Joe Pilcher, if you're out there, man, if you're alive,
tweet us.
Come guest star on the podcast. We'd love to interview you. Imagine if we got Joe Pilcher and we interviewed him and we just talked about Beethoven. We didn't be like, so where have you been? Like, we don't
What's Judge Reinhold like?
And Beethoven, what's he like? He's like, well, Beethoven was actually played by 3 dogs.
He's a great dog.
Oh my gosh, Joe Pilcher is Owen Wilson. He like changed his face.
Just fucked up his nose.
Have you ever seen Joe Pilcher and Owen Wilson in the same room together?
I haven't.
There you go.
I mean, Joe Pilcher's been missing for a long time. I haven't seen him in a long time.
That's true.
Because he's been missing.
So yeah, and it's interesting to think of. We'll probably wrap up now, but it's interesting to think of just the. And this is going to sound like, oh well, of course it's the movie business, but just the fact that these films keep going, like post him going missing. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, the fact that they did a 5th one.
Yeah,
that's kind of darker now that family's not in it.
Yeah, and I don't know if he'd gone missing by 5th.
Yeah.
But still, the fact that there was a big break.
Big break, yeah.
Between
Beethoven's
5th and Big Break, and that's when he went missing. So, like, yeah, it's just interesting that it didn't put a damper on the series. I mean, it was a straight to DVD film, and it's not like it was the last movie that he was in. But
that's interesting, yeah. Yeah, because there's the movie industry, as Beethoven has taught us.
Beethoven's been played by like 6 different dogs, by the way.
Yeah, I wanted to know that. Yeah.
Well, okay, I tried to find out some stuff about the dogs. All I could find is that the one in the first 2 was played by a dog named Chris, who then died after the second one, and then there's various like accounts of who plays him in the subsequent movies. One of them said that I think in the 3 reboots. It's played by 3 different dogs, but I couldn't really find anything about 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah, it's interesting because you asked me, you messaged me earlier in the week and said, you know how there's like a quintessential Jason, like in Freddy vs. Jason, Kane Hodder, even though like who cares?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a quintessential Beethoven where it's like if it's not Chris, who cares?
I'm not going to work with him.
Yeah, because like it's the same thing as Jason. Like who gives a shit?
Yeah,
it could be anyone. Having said that, Kane Hodder did a fine job.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, from like 6 onwards that he played.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your roses.
So you might be like, wait, you haven't done franchise roulette yet, which is a segment we usually do where we roll a number and whatever that number is corresponds to a list of franchises we have, and no matter what, we watch that franchise in the next 2 weeks. But we've actually got something planned for the release of Transformers in the next 2 weeks. We're going to be doing Transformers, and we're going to have Rowan Strang guest star on it, who's been on the podcast before. He did Back to the Future with us. He's a filmmaker friend of ours.
Yep, and so he's flying up just to do this. So
he's very excited. And
let's all welcome him. And then after that, of course, we're tackling the behemoth that is Godzilla.
We're doing the 30 Godzilla films 32. After Transformers, and that's going to go over a month.
Yeah.
So there's going to be 2 weeks between Transformers and the first Godzilla one, but then each Godzilla is going to be week to week, not fortnight.
So it'll be film franchise Fridays for a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's going to be horrible.
Huh?
It's going to be horrible.
Yeah, well, and you might be saying, how are we going to split them up? We're splitting them up by like their generation.
Yeah.
We're not splitting them up evenly.
Yeah, so
the
one
first
has
one's
14 and one has
Yeah.
like 8.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Tell your friends about this podcast. Rate and review us on iTunes. Like Cult Popture on Facebook and YouTube.
And leave a timed comment on SoundCloud.
Yes, please do. And let us know what your favourite Beethoven movie is.
Who's your favourite Beethoven?
Tell us who's your favourite Newton, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Fig.
Isaac. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next time.
I got a dog and his name is Beethoven.